How's it going, Laser Bruce's up, Bobby Sixkilla, and welcome back to Vigilant Villa. It is time for the last character chapter that we have unlocked so far until they release more, and it's probably going to be one of the most interesting ones because it is Emily's. The bad guy. Let's jump in. Marionette Villa, the most famous rich zone downtown. Each villa has a private garden that's big enough in this area of wealth. In a garden of a villa, 3 ladies are having afternoon tea. Sunlight shines on the jewelry on their fingers, ears and necks, which reflects dazzling glitter. The garden itself is another sign of wealth. Some flowers are in bloom, while some have passed their flowering phase. Like that cluster of tulips, they are far away from its flowering phase, so they need gardeners' special care at an extra cost. But people living here never think about the cost anyway. The only thing they need to worry about is what else they want. Mrs. Tong, you're lucky to have a daughter like Dr. Tong. Look how organised this house is. Yes. Thanks to Mrs. Tong, my granddaughter can learn to paint with Dr. Tong. She's bored at home anyway. It's good for her to teach children how to paint. Mrs. Tong sips the tea and leans back. She turns her head to look into the villa. Then her mouth lifts with satisfaction. My daughter has been excellent since she was little. After going abroad for further study, she majored in neurology and got a doctorate. She also minored in psychology. It's really hard for most people. Piano, painting, swimming, flower arrangement, the art of tea. She can master everything she wants to learn. Her marriage is wonderful too. I assume I don't need to introduce my son-in-law. He is not many years younger than us. We all know that. Mrs. Zeng replies fast with sarcasm. Mrs. Tong's face turns cold instantly. Mr. He is a top talent. It is hard to find another man like him. Mrs. Quinn meditates right after that. A smile goes back on Mrs. Tong's face. Yeah, a perfect match makes everything better. It's just a pity that she's not your biological daughter. Mrs. Tong puts down the teacup in her hands. The spoon makes a crisp sound with the cup. I ran many tests before choosing her. Memory, linguistic competence, logic, emotion control. She's the best at everything. Some people have stupid children because their genes are inferior. It's terrible just by thinking of it. The blood tie is powerful, Mrs. Tong. What's the use of keeping a perfect stranger? Dr. Tong is very filial. I can vouch for that. These ladies all live in Marionette Villa, but they're not friends. They're only playmates for afternoon tea. They have various hobbies, but that's not important. What's important is that they are the same class and the same age, and they don't want to leave the circle, although they dislike each other. A white dog runs to Mrs. Tong with its tail waving. Mrs. Tong hugs it happily. See? Even a dog knows to fawn on me because I come here often. Let alone a person. She knows that without me, she wouldn't have what she has now. Am I right, Whitey? Mrs. Tong is teasing the dog intently. Behind a French window, not far from the garden, Emily is quietly watching them. Quietly with earphones. Huh, she talks as if I'm a dog. Emily's tone is calm, no unhappiness, resentment, or any other emotions. Crack. A paper wad hits her. A look of aversion flashes by her face, but it turns into a gentle smile the next second. She turns around. What's wrong? Little girl behind her is Mrs. Zeng's precious granddaughter. This spoiled child bores her. You've been standing there for a long time. Draw my homework for me. My grandma will check it later. Emily smiles patiently and continues to paint her homework today. Mrs. Zeng has a room to place this princess's paintings. When Mrs. Zeng saw the painting every weekend, she'd brag about it everywhere, saying that her granddaughter would be a great painter. In fact, every frame painted in that room was drawn by Emily. This lie hasn't been discovered because the kid is good at lying, and adults always can't distinguish children's lies. So boring. Can we start the exploration today? Emily puts down the painting brush and smiles sincerely. Of course, you can take away everything you like in this world. But you have to take it secretly without anyone noticing. That way, it'll belong to you completely. You understand? Emily's hand caresses the little girl's face, but she dodges it subconsciously. Emily watches the girl turning things over. She's satisfied because she has prepared a big gift for her today. As usual, Emily takes the girl's paintings to Mrs. Zeng. What a wonderful painting, sweetie. I'll put it up in your room the minute we get home. Isn't my sweetie very talented, Dr. Tong? Yes, your paintings are enough for a small art exhibition. Art exhibition, good idea. I'll throw one for my sweetie. Your sweetie doesn't look right, Mrs. Zeng. Only then, Mrs. Zeng notices the little girl's face and arms are a bit red. What did you give her? I've especially reminded you that she's allergic to caffeine. How careless you are. Ms. Zeng's face turns ugly and her words become harsh too. Calm down, Mrs. Zing. I do have chocolate in the house, but I've put it away. Then how did she get it? Mrs. Zing's voice turns even louder. She sounds like she's not going to let this go easily. Sweetie, show me if there's a rash elsewhere. Mrs. Zing frantically checks the kid, but the kid's crying makes him more anxious. You must be responsible if anything happens to my sweetie. Suddenly, a glittering thing drops from the kid's pocket and falls on the grass. Is that the necklace I gave you, Emily? Why does she have it? The anxious air suddenly cools down. Everyone's looking at that necklace. I don't know. I have one at home too. Maybe she's taken it there. Impossible. This is custom made. There are initial letters of Emily's name on the back. Mrs. Keene picks up the necklace and checks it immediately. The initial letters are there indeed. Your kid steals. Nonsense. She must take it by accident while playing. It's mine. Everything is mine. I can take everything away as long as you don't find out about it. Not just Mrs. Zing, but everyone is dumbfounded. Only Emily smiles inconspicuously. The adults come to their senses after the child runs away. Go and check if anything else is missing. Let it go, Mum. How can I let it go? These jewels are precious. Dr. Tong, she's too young to understand. Check what's missing and I'll pay you back later. Mrs. Zing hurries to go after her granddaughter after speaking that. See? Kids with bad genes will do humiliating things like that. Emily returns to her room and throws herself on the couch leisurely. She looks cold, but that's her real expression. She takes back some of her time. That annoying kid won't return for a while. She can play a filial daughter, a perfect wife, a thoughtless hostess, or anything else she needs to play. Those are too boring. The only thing she's planning now interests her. Emily glances at her watch. Then she takes out a mobile phone from a drawer and dials the number adroitly. I'll see you this afternoon. Emily sits at the most secluded place at the cafe as usual on time. After a while, the familiar figure walks in through the door. This is the updates of these people. Liam Zong pushes over an envelope. There's a stack of photos in it. Of course. How long do we have to follow them? Emily turns the photos and replies casually, soon. Around these days. That soon? Liam stands up suddenly. He knows what the date means to him. You should have been ready for it quite a long time. Emily glances at him, looking calm. Liam sits down stiffly and tilts his lips. Yeah, it'll happen sooner or later. I can understand why you're doing this after you helped me recall all of those things. Jackie Jia, John Zhang, George He, I understand these, but I don't know. Why are the others in this plan too? Emily picks out the photo of Leo Liu, Amy, Claire Yi, and Ingram Feng. Because for me, no one is innocent. And you're a monster. Leo Liu. He was my nightmare for a long time. He was tall and strong and he liked to bully others to prove it. The degrees of his pranks would add up based on the victim's endurance. Timid people feared to resist him. Only endless torture awaited them. So you count him in because of this? What if I tell you that I was his target? Actually, it happened a long time ago. Yeah, long indeed. Forget about it. He didn't mean to do it. Only people who never undergo such pain would comfort others like that so easily. Such comfort is laughable to these people who have suffered. And I'm the one who sits opposite you. Liam starts asking. He can't imagine and doesn't want to know the details. Emily moves Leo's photo aside, looks up and smiles at Liam. As for her, no one should trust anything she says. Claire Yi. The woman who's best at lying. Hey kid, were you bullied again? Do you want to escape from this life? Someone came today, and he can help us find a new home. He only picked a few fellas. I'm on his list, but you're not. Maybe you should replace me and go to him. Why don't you want to go? I feel relaxed here, I don't want to go. How's that? Are you going? Yes, thank you. A few children in the activity room. A man bends and looks at me. You're not on the list, little girl. I'm on it. Is this you? He shows me a photo and I lower my head awkwardly. This is me. She's well behaved and smart. I hope you can find a good home for her too. Well, I can take you with me and try my best. But I need every kid on the list. Sure, I'll bring the last child here. When Claire is brought into the room, she cries and yells because she refuses to go. Later, I know the reason. She heard John's phone call and sensed it wasn't a good thing. That's why she lied to me to replace her. Such a little lie got me into that experiment. Emily resents that photo. She moves it aside, looking disgusted. Of course I must count her in, right? Liam knows that it sounds like a question, but it doesn't require his answer. He dares not to answer anyway. He's a bit afraid of Emily, and has taken her money too. It's not his business. Emily picks up Ingram's photo. Did you go to him after recalling everything? I didn't mean to. I bumped into him one day, but later I found out it wasn't him. Haven't you figured out what's not right? Did you think about why Ingram could come and go to the lab at will? Liam's eyes turn wide open. He looks at Emily and opens his mouth, but he doesn't say anything at last. Ingram Fang. Some people are born evil. In that place without lights, everyone became quiet and dumb that day after day. When I thought I'd spend the rest of my life like that, he showed up. Who are you? He was different from any kid I'd seen. He looked clean, and his eyes looked clear. He frowned while watching me. It was not resentment, precaution, or pity. He was just confused. It was the first time I met him. I envied him. I felt I was normal only when I was with him. Those puzzles made me realize I could do better than him at some point. It made me feel closer to him. A small sugar cube is dropped into the coffee and dissolves quickly to make it sweeter. I didn't know that he would come, but it was nice. I look forward to seeing him every day. In fact, he came just to play games and tell me about myself. But I might die a long time ago if he didn't find me. One day he came to me, wearing the same uniform as me, and he told me he'd take me out of there. I remember it, but they caught us at last. He was smart. We could really run away by following his route. But you do know why we were caught at last? Liam shakes his head. Emily supports her jaw with one hand. Then she points at Amy's photo. Because of her. Amy. She sold me out. Hurry, we've got 5 minutes. Where should we go to? He moved a stool and opened the ventilation entrance. He reached out his hand after getting up there. I caught his hand and he looked at the person behind me. Little Amy was looking at me on the glass door. Wait for me. We'll come back for you when we're out of here. I gestured to her to keep it a secret, and she nodded. A gloomy and cold space. The out-of-reach light in the front was the only hope. I could hear the hasty footsteps outside the ventilation. They were looking for me. Hurry or they'll find us. The light gets closer. I'll make it. I'll finally get out of here. When we looked at the destination, what waited for us were a few people in white lab coats. Ingram was mistaken as a sample, so they took him away too. I couldn't figure out how they found us until I saw one of them holding Amy's hand and caressing her head. They rewarded her with candy. She ate it and smiled happily, but her happiness was built on my despair. When they injected the drug inside Ingram's body in the lab, he twitched in great pain. What's wrong with his data? Why is he so sensitive to the drug? His health condition doesn't seem good. All the indicators are flopping rapidly. Professor, please come here and see what's going on. That woman in the lab coat was dumbfounded when she looked at the glass room. The next second she rushed in there and unplugged all the devices as if she was crazy. She was crying while hugging him. Wake up, Ingram. Good boy, don't sleep. You can't sleep. The woman picked him up and rushed out. His eyes closed as if he was sleeping. I never saw him again since then. My only light was gone. Only darkness was there with me. When I recalled all this, I looked into Ingram. When I found out who his parents were, I knew everything. Why would he be there? And why would we be there? Emily's thinking about something while looking at Isaac's photo. As for him, you don't need to know much about him. Just note that he hates Ingram more than any of us. Liam frowns. He doesn't agree with her. For him, these people and these memories are the distant past. Even if he hated them before, his feelings have been gradually washed away by time. He just wants to live in the moment. But Emily's different. For her, all the memories are so clear as if they just happened yesterday. Liam watches Emily casually drawing circles on these photos with a marker. He knows what a horrible and crazy thing she'll do, but he can only cooperate. Because in the last period of his life, he has something he wants to get, and something he wants to leave behind. There's not much time for you. Arrange things yourself. Emily suddenly picks up her bag and goes away. When she's out of sight, she starts collecting the photos scattered on the table. His hand halts. Emily has crossed all the photos except for Ingram's. The villa is large, empty and quiet. Emily sits at the table with her earphones and listens to the information over the other side. She circles several key pieces of information on the paper. Finally, she's about to have the chance. After a while, someone opens the door. Emily listens to the sounds in the living room. It's George that is back. She knows that Jackie has blackmailed him again today. Everything of him is under her control. In the living room, George takes off his suit and loosens his tie on his shirt. He walks to the wine cabinet and takes out a bottle of wine and a glass. He sits before the French window and looks at the garden outside. After a while, Emily feels someone lying down beside her. Emily feels his breath approaching her. He hugs her from behind. His muffled voice murmurs in her ear. Emily, Emily, are you with me? Emily frowns deeply with her back facing him. Her eyes are filled with resentment, disdain, and resistance. But when she turns around, she smiles gently. She lifts his face and replies softly, I'm here. It's great to have you. George tightens his hug to keep her in his arms, with his jaw on top of her head. Did anything happen in the company? Nothing, I just feel like you're with me, but you are far away. Emily hears a sigh from the top of her head. We haven't had a nice talk for a long time. It's too late now, you should rest. Emily breaks free gently. She pulls the nightstand drawer and takes out a pair of earphones. He needs to listen to the song to fall asleep. Emily has made him have that habit without him knowing. She sees a bit of plea in his eyes, but she ignores it. Her smile is gentle but distant. Sleep. You'll forget many worries when you wake up. Tomorrow is a new start. George doesn't say anything. He accepts the earphones and closes his eyes, just as she told him. The music gradually smooths his thoughts. He keeps falling. At last he falls asleep. After the breaths of the man beside her become steady, Emily gets up in the dark. In the bathroom, Emily is suppressing her painful growls. When she comes out, more scars appear on her arms. She steps on the floor barefooted and sits on the spot where George sat before. She can see the entire garden at this place. The moonlight is so bright that it shines on the floor through the French window. She's in a good mood because the game will start soon. Okay, and that's Emily's crazy ass fucking chapter. And that's it. We are out until the next DLC comes out. And when that happens, we will cover the others as well. But I think we covered most of the most interesting characters anyway. But we'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.